Now we come to contemplation of mind. And how monks, does a monk abide contemplating mind in the mind? Here a monk knows a lustful mind as lustful, a mind free from lust as free from lust, a hating mind as hating, mind free from hate as free from hate, a deluded mind as deluded, an undeluded mind as undeluded, a contracted mind as contracted, a distracted mind as distracted, a developed mind as developed, an undeveloped mind as undeveloped, a surpassed mind as surpassed, an unsurpassed mind as unsurpassed, a concentrated mind as concentrated, an unconcentrated mind as unconcentrated, a liberated mind as liberated, an unliberated mind as unliberated. So he abides contemplating mind in mind internally, he abides contemplating mind in mind externally, or he abides contemplating arising factors in the mind, etc. Or else mindfulness that there is mind is present just to the extent necessary for knowledge and awareness, and he abides detached, not grasping at anything in the world. That, monks, is how a monk abides contemplating mind in mind. You see this part, or else mindfulness that there is mind is present just to the extent necessary for knowledge and awareness. For example, sometimes when we are doing the breath meditation, you're watching your breath go in and out, go in and out. Later, the mind the breath becomes very fine. You don't see the breath, or the sloth and torpor is very strong. Because of sloth and torpor, you cannot see the breath at all. Then, when there's as though there's no object, then you can practice this. Mindfulness that there is mind, there is awareness, is present just to the extent necessary for knowledge and awareness. You just know, even there is no object, you have this knowing mind. What Achan Man, they call Puru, the knowing one. Always be aware of the knowing one. So, when there is no object at all, then you just contemplate that, the knowing. This knowing is always there, and this knowing we take to be the self. So this contemplation of the mind, the state of the mind, you try to be aware of the state of the mind. And not only that, sometimes thoughts also, because we have a lot of thoughts in our mind. So whatever thoughts arise in your mind, also you have to look at the thoughts. For example, look at the motive of your thoughts. Why do I think in a certain way? For example, say you have a certain hatred for somebody, like consider somebody as your enemy or something, and then you ask yourself, why I think in this way? Or you want something, then you ask yourself, why? So you always look at your motive, because when we contemplate our motive, then we understand ourselves better. And then when you understand yourself better, then you can see what is stronger in you. Is it the lust that is stronger? Or is it the hatred that is stronger? Or is it the the delusion that is strong? So when we understand ourselves, then only we can correct our faults. If you don't understand yourself, then you don't see your faults. How can you correct your faults? A lot of people never look inside. A lot of people, we always see other people's fault. And when we see other people's fault, we try to criticize people. But other people can see our faults. So if somebody tells you your fault, you should try to look whether it's true or not, instead of getting angry. A lot of people get angry because they never look inside. When you don't look inside and somebody tells you your fault, you think you are perfect. You don't have that kind of fault, you see. So you don't accept it. And then you blow your top and all these things. But the Buddha says in the suttas that if you have a teacher who can point out your faults and correct you, that is the best teacher. You must stay with him the rest of your life. Because if somebody points out your faults, then only you can improve. If nobody points out your faults, then you can never improve. Because it's hard to see your own fault. So it's important always to look inwards. not look outwards, look inwards into our mind. Why we think in a certain way, why we react in a certain way, why we cannot accept something, why we get angry and all these things. Now we come to Dhamma. And how monks, does a monk abide contemplating Dhamma in Dhamma? This here, the translation in mind objects, sometimes they translate as phenomena, but the actual meaning is the Buddha's Dhamma. The contemplation of the Buddha's Dhamma is extremely important. In fact, of all these four objects, the contemplation of the Buddha's Dhamma should be the most important, because the Buddha says in the Anguttara Nikaya, there are 5 occasions when a person becomes liberated, when a person becomes an arahant. One, when he is listening to the sutta, that means the Buddha's Dhamma. Secondly, when he is teaching the Buddha's Dhamma or sutta. And then number 3, when he is reflecting on the Buddha's Dhamma. Number 4, when he is repeating the Buddha's Dhamma. As you repeat the Buddha's Dhamma, you understand and you bring it to recall it to mind. So these are the 4 occasions, and the 5th one is during meditation. So you see, to become liberated, 4 occasions have to do with understanding the Dhamma. So here, the Dhamma is the Buddha's Dhamma, and Buddha's Dhamma is the most important of all the 4 objects of Satipatthana. Okay, here a monk abides contemplating Dhamma in respect of the 5 hindrances. How does he do so? Here monks, if sensual desire is present in himself, a monk knows that it is present. If sensual desire is absent in himself, a monk knows that it is absent. And he knows how unarisen sensual desire comes to arise. And he knows how the abandonment of arisen sensual desire comes about. And he knows how the non-arising of the abandoned sensual desire in the future will come about. If ill will is present in himself, a monk knows that it is present, etc. And he knows how the non-arising of the abandoned ill will in the future will come about. Similarly, if sloth and torpor is present in himself, a monk knows that it is present, etc. If worry and flurry, sometimes sometimes they translate it as restlessness and worry, is present in himself, a monk knows that it is present, etc., etc. If doubt is present, a monk knows that it is present, etc., etc. So here, let me finish. So he abides contemplating Dhamma in Dhamma internally. He abides, etc. Then he abides contemplating arising factors in Dhamma, or else mindfulness that there is Dhamma is present just to the extent necessary for knowledge and awareness. And he abides detached, not grasping at anything in the world. And that, monks, is how a monk abides contemplating Dhamma in respect of the 5 hindrances. So here, the first Dhamma he contemplates is the 5 hindrances. The 5 hindrances are sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry, and doubt. And in the suttas, the Buddha says, we are not wise or intelligent because of these 5 hindrances. Somebody who has very low IQ, the 5 hindrances will be very strong. And when the 5 hindrances are very strong, they are called hindrances because they obsess our mind, and they hinder us. That's why they are called hindrances. But if these 5 things are at a very low level, then and they don't hinder you, they don't obsess your mind, then they are not called hindrances. They are only called hindrances when they are strong and obsess your mind and hinder you. So this sensual desire, if it is very strong, you find the newspaper sometimes, an old man may rape the daughter or the granddaughter because he cannot control the sensual desire. And ill will, if it's very strong, sometimes I've seen the newspaper, a son arguing with the father, and then he lost his temper, he took the machete, the parang, and slash the father to death. This is ill will or anger is very strong. And if sloth and torpor is very strong, then that person is half asleep most of the time. Blur blur, as we say. And if restlessness and worry is strong, then a person cannot sit still. You see a lot of young people, they ask them to meditate or to stay quiet, they cannot. They always must go out of the house. If doubt is strong, then a person finds it hard to make a decision. Like some people, they want to, they have 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 boyfriends. Some girl they want to marry, they can't choose which one. Similarly, for a boy choosing a girl, or a person wants to choose a job, he's got a few jobs in hand, he doesn't know which one to decide. The doubt is very strong. So these 5 hindrances. So when he abides, when he contemplates the 5 hindrances, the Dhamma internally, I guess, probably refers to the 5 hindrances in himself. When he contemplates it externally, probably means the 5 hindrances in other people. Again, monks. A monk abides contemplating Dhamma in respect of the 5 aggregates of attachment or grasping. How does he do so? Here a monk thinks, such is form or body, such the arising of form, such the disappearance of form, such is feelings, such is the arising of feeling, such is the disappearance of feeling, such is perception, such the arising of perception, such the disappearance of perception. Such is volition, such the arising of volition, the disappearance of volition. Such is consciousness, the arising of consciousness and the disappearance of consciousness. So he abides contemplating Dhamma in Dhamma, internally, externally, internally and externally. And he abides detached, not grasping at anything in the world. But that, monks, is how a monk abides contemplating Dhamma in respect of the 5 aggregates of attachment. Stop here for a moment. So here we are talking about Panchu Padana Kanda, the 5 aggregates of attachment. These 5 aggregates of attachment are also called body and mind. The first one is body. The other 4 comprises mind, feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness. So we take these 5 aggregates to be I or mind. Everybody takes these 5 aggregates to be I or mind. And because we take the 5 aggregates to be I or mind, we fight for survival, we fight for I and mine, all your possessions, all your relatives, etc. So instead of seeing the 5 aggregates are just body and mind. So because we are attached to the 5 aggregates, so when that the body becomes sick, then we think we are sick. When your son dies, then you think my son dies, and you suffer a lot. But if you think that is just body, then you won't suffer so much. So the Buddha is trying to tell us that these 5 aggregates is not I, is not mine. We have no control over them. They came into the world, and then they arise and they age, and they become sick and they die. We have no control. That's why the Buddha says it's not I and mine. Again, monks. A monk abides contemplating Dhamma in respect of the 6 internal and external sense bases. How does he do so? Here a monk knows the eye, knows eye objects or sight objects, and he knows whatever factor arises dependent on the 2. And he knows how an unarisen factor comes to arise, and he knows how the abandonment of an arisen factor comes about. And he knows how the non-arising of the abandoned factor in the future will come about. He knows the ear and knows sound, etc. He knows nose and smells, etc. He knows tongue and taste, etc. He knows body and tangibles, etc. He knows mind and mind objects, etc. So he knows how an unarisen factor comes to arise, and he knows how the abandonment of an arisen factor comes about, and he knows how the non-arising of the abandoned factor in the future will come about. So he abides contemplating Dhamma in Dhamma internally, etc. And he abides detached, not grasping at anything in the world. And that, monks, is how a monk abides contemplating Dhamma in Dhamma in respect of the 6 internal and external sense bases. Stop here for a moment. These 6 sense bases, Salayatana, is another very important teaching, Dhamma teaching, that we need to contemplate, because to attain liberation from suffering, we have to understand what we take to be I and mine, and this 6 sense bases is another that we need to understand. If you contemplate, if you analyze these 6 sense bases, I, ear, nose, tongue, body and mind, is also basically body and mind, because the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body is the body part, and then the mind is the mind part. So it's a little similar to the 5 aggregates. Again, monks, a monk abides contemplating Dhamma in Dhamma in respect of the 7 factors of enlightenment. That's the Bojjhangas. How does he do so? Here, monks, if the enlightenment factor of mindfulness is present in himself, a monk knows that it is present. If the enlightenment factor of mindfulness is absent in himself, he knows that it is absent. This word mindfulness is not the sampajanya, This word is sati. This refers to sati. And sati, a better translation, is recollection. That means you are mindful of a specific object, not general mindfulness. It's a specific mindfulness, sati. And he knows how the unarisen enlightenment factor of mindfulness comes to arise. And he knows how the complete development of the enlightenment factor of mindfulness comes about. If the enlightenment factor of investigation of Dhamma is present in himself, etc., the enlightenment factor of energy, enlightenment factor of delight, enlightenment factor of tranquility, enlightenment factor of concentration, enlightenment factor of equanimity is present, the monk knows that it is present, etc. So he abides contemplating Dhamma in Dhamma in respect of the 7 factors of enlightenment. Stop here for a moment. These 7 factors of enlightenment, if we practice it thoroughly, then we can become enlightened, and they are very important factors that can bring about enlightenment. The first one is sati. Sati is specific mindfulness. Actually, the practice of these 7 factors of enlightenment is explained very well, very detailed in the Bojjhanga Sangyutta of the Sangyutta Nikaya, which I went through those suttas 2 years ago, and I explained that very clearly. So if you want to understand more about the 7 factors of enlightenment, you must listen to those suttas. There are many suttas in the Bojjhanga Sangyutta concerning the 7 factors of enlightenment. Again, monks, a monk abides contemplating Dhamma in Dhamma in respect of the 4 noble truths. How does he do so? Here a monk knows as it really is, this is suffering. He knows as it really is, this is the origin of suffering. He knows as it really is, this is the cessation of suffering. He knows as it really is, this is the way of practice leading to the cessation of suffering. And what, monks, is the noble truth of suffering? Birth is suffering, aging is suffering, dying is suffering, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief and despair are suffering. Being attached to the unloved is suffering. Being separated from the loved is suffering. Not getting what one wants is suffering. In short, the 5 aggregates of attachment are suffering. And what, monks, is birth? In whatever beings, of whatever group of beings, there is birth, coming to be, coming forth, the appearance of the aggregates, the acquisition of the sense bases. That, monks, is called birth. And what is aging? In whatever beings, of whatever group of beings, there is aging, decrepitude, broken teeth, grey hair, wrinkled skin, shrinking with age, decay of the sense faculties, that monks is called aging. And what is dying? In whatever beings, of whatever group of beings, there is a passing away, a removal, a cutting off, a disappearance, a death, a dying, an ending, a cutting off of the aggregates, a discarding of the body. That monks is called death or dying. And what is sorrow? Whenever by any kind of misfortune anyone is affected by something of a painful nature, sorrow, mourning, distress, inward grief, inward woe, that monks is called sorrow. And what is lamentation? Whenever by any kind of misfortune anyone is affected by something of a painful nature, and there is crying out, lamenting, making much noise for grief, making great lamentation, that monks is called lamentation. And what is pain? Whatever bodily painful feeling, bodily unpleasant feeling, painful or unpleasant feeling results from bodily contact, that monks is called pain. And what is sadness? Whatever mental painful feeling, mental unpleasant feeling, painful or unpleasant sensation resulting from mental contact, that monks is called sadness. And what is distress? Whenever by any kind of misfortune anyone is affected by something of a painful nature, distress, great distress, affliction with distress, with great distress, that monks is called distress. And what monks is being attached to the unloved. Here, whoever has unwanted, disliked, unpleasant sight, objects, sounds, smells, tastes, tangibles, or mind objects, or whoever encounters ill wishes, wishes of harm, of discomfort, of insecurity, with whom they have concourse, intercourse, connection, union, that monks is called being attached to the unloved. And what is being separated from the loved? Here, whoever has what is wanted, like pleasant sight objects, sounds, smells, tastes, tangibles, or mind objects, or whoever encounters well wishes, wishes of good, of comfort, of security, mother or father or brother or sister or younger kinsman, or friends or colleagues or blood relation, and then is deprived of such concourse, intercourse, connection or union, that monks is called being separated from the loved. And what is not getting what one wants? In being subject to birth, monks, this wish arises, oh, that we were not subject to birth, that we might not come to birth, but this cannot be gained by wishing. That is not getting what one wants. In being subject to aging, to sickness, to death, to sorrow, lamentation, pain, sadness and distress, this wish arises, oh, that we were not subject to aging, etc., etc., that we might not come to these things. But this cannot be gained by wishing. That is not getting what one wants. And how monks, in short, are the five aggregates of attachment suffering? They are as follows. The aggregate of attachment, that is body, feeling, perception, volition, consciousness. These are in short the five aggregates of attachment that are suffering. And that, monks, is called the noble truth of suffering. Stop here for a moment. So this is a long list of what is meant by suffering. Okay, you can slowly go through that. And what, monks, is the noble truth of the origin of suffering? It is that craving which gives rise to rebirth, bound up with pleasure and lust, finding fresh delight now here, now there. That is to say, sensual craving, craving for existence, and craving for non-existence. And where does this craving arise and establish itself? Wherever in the world there is anything agreeable and pleasurable, there this craving arises and establishes itself. And what is there in the world that is agreeable and pleasurable? The eye in the world is agreeable and pleasurable. The ear, nose, tongue, body and mind in the world is agreeable and pleasurable. And there this craving arises and establishes itself. Sights, sounds, smells, tastes, tangibles, mind objects in the world are agreeable and pleasurable. And there this craving arises and establishes itself. Eye, consciousness, ear, consciousness, nose, consciousness, tongue, consciousness, body, consciousness, mind, consciousness in the world is agreeable and pleasurable. And there this craving arises and establishes itself. eye contact, ear contact, nose contact, tongue contact, body contact, mind contact in the world is agreeable and pleasurable. And there this craving arises and establishes itself. Feeling born of eye contact, ear contact, nose contact, tongue contact, body contact, mind contact in the world is agreeable and pleasurable. And there this craving arises and establishes itself. The perception of sight, sound, smells, taste, tangibles, mind objects in the world is agreeable and pleasurable. And there this craving arises and establishes itself. Volition in regard to sight, sound, smells, taste, tangibles, mind objects in the world is agreeable and pleasurable. And there this craving arises and establishes itself. The craving for sight, sound, smells, taste, tangibles, mind objects in the world is agreeable and pleasurable. And there this craving arises and establishes itself. Thinking of sight, sound, smells, taste, etc. Pondering on sight, sound, smells, taste, etc. And that, monks, is called the noble truth of the origin of suffering. Stop here for a moment. So this origin of suffering is the craving. And craving arises because there is something agreeable and pleasurable. In other words, something that gives us pleasant feeling, we crave for it. Because it gives us pleasant feeling, we want it again and again. So craving and attachment arises. But if you delight in something, after a while, you sian already, you get tired of it. For example, if you listen to a new music, then you think it's very nice. But if it's somebody plays it too often, then you get tired of it. But if somebody plays it non-stop, then you get sick and tired of it, and you can't stand it. And so that's why you see here, it says finding fresh delight now here, now there. So when you enjoy something, you delight in something, it's only for a certain period. After a while, you jelak already. You don't want it anymore. You want to find something else. After a while, you get tired of it. For example, you like to eat Kentucky chicken. But every day, if they serve you with Kentucky chicken, after a while, you get sick and tired of it. So you want to find fresh delight now here, now there, somewhere else. So you keep changing. That's the problem with life. Life can never be satisfied. You enjoy worldly things. You can never find satisfaction. Only for a short while you find satisfaction. And then you want something else. And what, monks, is the noble truth of the cessation of suffering? Is a complete fading away and extinction of this craving, is forsaking and abandonment, liberation from it, detachment from it. And how does this craving come to be abandoned? And how does its cessation come about? Wherever in the world there is anything agreeable and pleasurable, there its cessation comes about. And what is there in the world that is agreeable and pleasurable? The eye in the world is agreeable and pleasurable. The ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. Eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, etc. Sight, sound, smell, taste, tangibles, mind, objects. Eye contact, ear contact, nose contact, etc. Volition in regard to sight, sound, smells, etc. Thinking of sight, sound, smells, etc. Pondering on sight, sound, smells, etc. And there this craving comes to an end. There cessation comes about. That, monks, is called the noble truth of the cessation of suffering. Stop here for a moment. So the cessation of suffering is to cut off the craving, forsaking and abandonment of that craving. So wherever the craving arises in the world from sight, sound, smell, taste, etc., or other things, we have to make it extinct, forsake it, abandon it, detach from it. That is how cessation of suffering comes about.